All right. Well, good afternoon and welcome to today's session of Basic Hebrew for the Bible Study Hickory on this 27th day of November 2022. When we met last week, we were taking a look at pronominal suffixes. Now, remember that pronominal suffixes are basically just pronouns that are attached to the end of another part of speech. As we saw last week, they can be attached to the end of nouns, but as we will see this week, they can also be attached to the end of other parts of speech as well. So just as a little bit of a refresher, what are these pronominal suffixes? Now, remember these pronouns, they're going to change form for person, gender, and number. So thus, first common singular, you have e, which would be me. Second masculine singular, ika, you. Second feminine singular, ake, you, feminine singular. Third masculine singular, o, him. Third feminine singular, ah, her. Remember that dot there in the hey, we call that a mapik, and basically it indicates that we do go ahead and pronounce the hey with a little bit more force. So instead of ah, it's ah. So a little bit of breathiness on it. And that helps to distinguish it from the feminine singular ending for a noun. Then we also have first common plural, anu, us. Second masculine plural, akem, you. Second feminine plural, aken, you. Notice that the only difference there between the second masculine plural and the second feminine plural is the presence of the noon at the end of the suffix. And so noon, well, in English, we would say none. So noons are nuns and nuns are always female. So that is one of those little mnemonic devices that you can use to remember the differences between ikim and iken there. So then we also have third masculine plural, ahem, them. This can alternatively be spelled as well. And then third feminine plural, ahen, them, also alternatively spelled on also. And you can see that same pattern holds true here, where the noon is present on the feminine suffix. So again, noons are nuns and nuns are always female. So that's just one of those little mnemonic devices that you can use to help in remembering these pronominal suffixes. So again, just reading through these, e, ika, ake, o, ah, anu, ikem, iken, ihem, ihen. And then these different pronominal suffixes, they can also take different forms depending on whether the noun that they are attached to is singular or plural. So on plural nouns, these same pronominal suffixes take these forms. First common singular, I. Second masculine singular, eka. Second feminine singular, ek. Third masculine singular, au. Third feminine singular, eha. First common plural, anu. Second masculine plural, akem. Second feminine plural, aken. Third masculine plural, ahem. And third feminine plural, ahen. So those are also the forms as well. Essentially, notice that these pronominal suffixes on plural nouns, these forms are in essence the same as on singular nouns, but the primary difference being that yod there. So you have the yod in the second masculine singular and the second feminine singular and so forth all the way down. And the presence of that yod is going to help in recognizing that the noun to which this suffix is attached is in fact plural. So that's going to be one of those things. And so as we saw some examples here. So Susi, the horse of me, but then you come on over to Susai. Again, you've got that yod present there and the longer vowel there. And so this would be the horses of me. So you can see how that works. But as we said, these pronominal suffixes not only attach themselves to nouns, but they can also attach themselves to other parts of speech, including prepositions and verbs as well. And so I'm going to run through those forms here real quick, and then we're also going to take a look at some passages where these pronominal suffixes occur on prepositions and on verbs as well. So here we have then, okay, so prepositions with pronominal suffixes. Remember the prepositions that we have talked about so far. You have the Baith preposition, the Lameth preposition, and the Calf preposition. So again, that would be, as you can see, if we come on over here to the whiteboard. So this Baith preposition here, so Baith preposition, this would signify, and it basically has the idea of location. Then you also have the Lameth preposition as well. We would say to or for because of the fact that it does indicate a reception or direction. And then we also have the Calf preposition, which I would argue is actually more of a conjunction introducing a comparative clause, but that's neither here nor there for the moment. So as like, we would say, because it does indicate manner or comparison. And then we also have the men preposition as well. We would translate it as from, because it does have a tendency to indicate that idea of separation. So these are the prepositions that we have talked about so far. Now, these prepositions, the Baith and the Lameth, they are just going to take the pronominal suffix, no problem, basically just attached right to them. The Calf and the men preposition, they're going to do something a little bit different. And then you also have some prepositions, for instance, like al, and this particular idea of basically over or upon, it's going to take the pronominal suffixes in the as they would occur on a plural noun. And so you'll see that as we go through this here. So notice again, the Lameth and the Baith preposition, they are basically just going to take the pronominal suffixes as they occur on a singular noun. So thus you would have li. So you can see here is the, okay, so here we have then li. So you can see the Lameth preposition there with the first common singular pronominal suffix. So the Lameth preposition, to, and then e, the pronominal suffix, me. So li then, to me. Lika, again, you can see the Lameth preposition with the ika, second masculine singular pronominal suffix. So the Lameth preposition, to, and then ika, you. And so forth as well. You have the Lameth preposition here and the second feminine singular pronominal suffix. So lok. And this particular form we would have, as you can see, if I come back over to these pronominal suffixes, second feminine singular, I would have expected ake as my pronominal suffix here. But there's a problem. We can't have that here when we're dealing with the Lameth preposition, because lake would be the imperative form of the verb halak. So we can't have that because then those two forms could possibly be confused. And so as a result, then they go ahead and they change the vowel a little bit to ik, to indicate that this is not the imperative of halak. This is, in fact, the Lameth preposition with the second feminine singular pronominal suffix. So we have the Lameth preposition to ak, second feminine singular pronominal suffix. So lak, to you. And then you can also see lo. So you have, again, the Lameth preposition with the third masculine singular pronominal suffix as well there. Now, this form here, lo, is not to be confused with this form over here. And I'm just going to write it on the whiteboard. So this form here versus this form. So this form here, the Lameth with the holum followed by the aleph, this is going to be the negative adverb. We would translate it as no or not. But the Lameth with just the holum wow, that is going to be the Lameth preposition with the pronominal suffix third masculine singular. So to him. And so that is just something to be aware of as we're taking a look at this, that they sound alike to our ears, but the meaning is very different. So be mindful of the presence or the absence of that aleph there. So li, lika, lak, lo, and then I also have la here. And you can again see the Lameth preposition with the third feminine singular pronominal suffix. So to her. Then you also have lanu. I think someone's mic may be open. If we could double check that, please. And so then we also have lanu here, and you can see that we have the Lameth preposition with the anu pronominal suffix here. So you have then la, so the Lameth preposition with the anu pronominal suffix, first common plural. And so this would be to us. Remember that form. We are going to be seeing that here in just a moment. And then we also have lakem. Notice here you can see the Lameth preposition with the akem pronominal suffix. So to you, laken, same thing, just feminine singular here. So to you, feminine plural. Then we have lahem, and you can see the Lameth preposition with the ahem there, third masculine plural pronominal suffix, and so thus to them, and lahen. And so thus again, you would have to them, feminine plural. So those are going to be your prepositions with pronominal suffixes. Now, as I said, there are some prepositions that will take the pronominal suffixes as their objects, but the form of the pronominal suffixes will be the form that they take on a plural noun, and al is one of these. So notice here as we go through this, so al is going to be the preposition upon. So you have then, so here we have alai, upon me, aleka, upon you, alayik, upon you, feminine singular, allow, upon him, aleha, upon her, alenu, upon us, alekem, upon you, masculine plural, aleken, upon you, feminine plural, alehen, upon them, masculine plural, and alehen, upon them, feminine plural. So these are going to be some of those forms as well. So just be mindful that there are some prepositions that will take the pronominal suffixes and the form that they take on singular nouns, others in the form that they take when they're on plural nouns. So that's just one of those things. Now, remember how I said that the calf preposition and the men preposition do some interesting things when we're dealing with pronominal suffixes? In essence, what happens is these pronouns will take on their longer form when you put the pronominal suffix onto them. So thus, instead of the calf preposition just being ki or ka or cake or something like that, what we have in this particular instance is the calf preposition lengthens, and then it will add the pronominal suffix. So thus, the calf preposition with the first common singular pronominal suffix becomes kamoni, like me. Second masculine singular, kamoka, like you. Second feminine singular, kamok, like you. Third masculine singular, kamohu, like him. Third feminine singular, kamoha, like her. First common plural, kamonu, like us. Second masculine plural. Now we're back to just the regular calf preposition here, largely because of the fact that these are going to be the heavier suffixes here. Kakem, like you, masculine plural. Kaken, like you, feminine plural. Kahem, like them, masculine plural. And kahen, like them, feminine plural. And then as well, when we come on over to the men preposition, that idea of from, now we're going to have that doubling here as well. So you have then memeni, from me, mimika, from you, mimake, from you, feminine singular. So memenu, from him, memena, from her, memenu, from us, mekem, from you, meken, from you, mehem, from them, masculine plural, mehen, from them, feminine plural. So these are basically the forms of these pronominal suffixes on prepositions, and you can see some of the differences that occur. Now, at this point, I do want to take us over to this particular verse, and we can begin to see some of these pronominal suffixes on prepositions as we're dealing with a particular text. And this particular text seemed rather fitting now that we have had Thanksgiving and we're getting ready to move into the Christmas season here. So Isaiah 9:6, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. And so thus, that is the English text. We're familiar with that. Now let's take a look at the Hebrew text here. So here is the Hebrew text. So, Ki yeled yulav lanu, bein netan lanu, wetihi hemisra al shekmo, Vayikra Shemo Pele Yoetz El Gibor Aviav Sar Shalom. So this is the text there. So what we have here, first of all, notice we have the ki. This particular word here, ki, this is our subordinating causal conjunction in Hebrew. It is, in essence, the idea because. So because Yelev, and the word Yelev, this is going to be a noun. It is masculine singular. It is absolute here. And this is basically the idea of an originated one, someone who has been originated. So because originated one, Yulav. Now, this is going to be a verb form. Remember when we were talking about Hebrew verbs? Hebrew verbs are going to have stem, aspect, person, gender, and number. And like other Hebrew words, these are built off of 3 consonants. Now, Yulav here, I can tell because of the kibbutz and then also because of the dagesh forte in the middle root letter that this is going to be the pu'al stem here, which basically has the idea of intensive action that is passive. So this is intensification of action, but passive. That is, the subject is receiving the action. Notice here as well that this particular word is built off of the same triliteral root as the word that we just saw, Yod, Lamed, Daleth. These two words are related. They come from exactly the same source. So this is a pual. It is perfect, which means completed action. I can tell that because there is no imperfect performative here. And it is third masculine singular. So thus, if Yeleth is the idea of an originated one, then the verb form, Yalath, would be the idea of to originate, but it's passive here. So thus, we would then say was originated. It is kind of an interesting thing. We are talking about a prophecy here. That is, this has not a prophecy in the sense here that this is something that the Lord has communicated to Isaiah, and Isaiah is forthtelling. He is speaking it before the people of Israel. But this is something that has not happened yet, and yet the Lord is using the perfect aspect, expressing it as though it has in fact occurred, which just tells us from the Lord's perspective, this was something that had in fact already occurred. It's a done deal, which is kind of an interesting thing seeing that. So we have then, because an originated one was originated, lanu. We saw that form earlier today. Notice the lamed preposition with the anu pronominal suffix. So here you have the lamed prep with the first common plural pronominal suffix. And so thus we would say to us. So because an originated one was originated to us, and then we've got a little bit more clarification on this. Bane. Well, bane, again, this is going to be a noun, masculine, singular, absolute here from the word bane, meaning sun. So thus we have sun. Now here, this particular word, Natan, I look at it, I see 3 consonants. So I might be tempted to think, oh, well, that is going to be my triliteral root. Well, not quite here. Notice again here the Dagesh forte inside of the tau. And here in this instance, this is telling me that something has assimilated. So, and a Dagesh forte compensative has been placed in the following letter. So what has happened, I had the word Nathan here. So Nathan, but then the noon of what we would call the nifal. Remember, the nifal is the passive of the cow. So that then, here, let's just go ahead and review those stems. So you have cow, which is going to be the basic action. Nifal is the passive of the cow. Piel, intensive action. Pual, the passive of the piel. Hifil, causative action. Hofal, the passive of the hifil. Hifpale, reflexive action. And what we're dealing with here is the nifal, which means that we're dealing with the passive of the cow. There's been a noon that has been attached to the front to indicate, oh yes, this is a nifal. And so thus here, when I attach that, then this first noon of the root then becomes silent. And thus it is vowelless, which means then, because that noon is vowelless, it is going to assimilate, and a Dagesh forte compensative is going to be placed in the following letter. And thus we have Natan, which is exactly the form that we have here. Nathan is the verb to give, but it's passive. And it's also, as you can see, no imperfect performative here. This is perfect. So thus, was given. So a son was given. Still perfect aspect, indicating this is done. And then you have lanu again. So you have the lamed preposition with the first common plural pronominal suffix again. To us. So thus, so far we have because an originated one was originated to us, a son was given to us. And then we can come on down here as well. Watihi. Notice here we have a wow consecutive on an imperfect. So this then is going to be my imperfect performative, the tau. Remember, we have 4 imperfect performatives. Aleph, yod, tau, and noon, where the aleph would indicate first common singular, the noon would indicate first common plural, the yod would indicate third masculine singular or plural, and then the tau would indicate everything else, second masculine singular and plural, second feminine singular and plural, or third feminine singular and plural. In this instance, I have the tau, so it could be any of these, but what follows is the subject, and I can see by the ending that this is going to be a feminine singular noun. So that tells me then that this is in fact going to be a third feminine singular verb. And what is that verb? Well, hey, yod, and then there's a final hey that has dropped off. So haya, which would be to exist. So then, and the wow consecutive flips the aspect, making this imperfect verb perfect. So then existed. And notice what follows as well. We have hey with a pathak followed by a dagash forte, so I can see the article on the word misra. This is basically the idea of government or dominion. It's actually related to another word that we have down here, sar, which is the word for prince. So thus we'll say I'll go ahead and use the word government here, but this is basically that idea of that right to rule. And then you have here al shikmo. So al, that's that preposition that we just saw. It has the idea of upon. So upon, and then notice here, shikmo, I have a third masculine singular pronominal suffix on this word here, which is basically shechem, which is shoulder. And this particular word, having that pronominal suffix attached to it, is going to be in the construct, and the third masculine singular suffix is going to be the absolute. Now, remember, construct nouns, they cannot take the article, so thus they are made definite by their absolute. The absolute is definite if it has the article, if it is a pronoun, or if it is a proper name. In this case, our absolute, the pronominal suffix, is a pronoun, making it definite, which in turn makes the construct definite. So upon the shoulder of him, referring back to the son. So then the government existed upon the shoulder of him. And then we also have Wayikra. Notice we again have that wow consecutive on an imperfect. It's the yod here, so that tells me this is either third masculine, singular, or plural. I can tell the difference between a singular and plural by looking at the end to see if there's a U class vowel. There's no U class vowel here, so I know then that this is going to be singular. So again, I'm dealing here, the hierarch underneath the imperfect performative tells me that this is a cal. It's imperfect. The yod tells me it's third masculine. No U class vowel, so I know it's singular. From the verb kara, which is the idea of to call. So then he called shmo. Notice here you've got another pronominal suffix, third masculine singular, just like what we saw up above on shikmo. But this is going to be on the noun shame, meaning name. And again, we have here where the pronominal suffix is going to make the construct noun definite. So thus this would be the name of him, and then we come into the list of names here. So Pele, which is basically this idea of wonderful.
Continue for a minute and I'll be right back.
Certainly, absolutely.
Mhm.
And then we also have yoetz. This is going to be this is actually a participle form here, that OA idea, but basically the idea of a counselor. So wonderful, counselor, and then you have El Gibor. Well, El is a shortened form of Elohim, meaning God. And then Gibor is an adjective modifying El, basically the idea of mighty in this instance. So El Gibor, mighty God. And then we have this one, Aviav. This is actually a composite word. You can see Avi there. That is going to come from the word of, which has the idea of father. And then the av here is another preposition having the idea of until. So literally then we would say father until. Now you will notice that in the English text, they have this translated as the everlasting father. And so the question then is, well, how did the KJV translators get from this idea of father until, which is the literal meaning of Aviav, to this idea of the everlasting father? Well, what's interesting, you can very clearly see where the father part comes from, but it's the until part where we get the everlasting idea. So father until, but the point of until is not specified. So it's as though you get to this particular point, but again, you can still go on because until has not been specified, and until has not been specified, and until has not been specified. So because of the fact that there is no limit that has been specified for the preposition until, it just keeps going, hence everlasting father. And then we come as well here to Sar Shalom. Well, Sar, this is going to be the idea of prince. It is in the construct here. So prince of, and then you have Shalom, completeness. You will hear Shalom translated as though it were peace, but the word shalom is in fact actually taking in more than just peace, which we would have a tendency to say, well, absence of conflict. Now, completeness is basically this idea that every interaction that exists, every situation is existing in exactly the way that the Lord would have it to exist. And so that then it's more than just the absence of conflict. This is that idea of total unalienation, as well as the fact that everything is existing exactly as it ought to. But this is one of those things. So you can see what we have here. So Kiyelev, Yulav, Lanu. So because an originated one was originated to us. And so here you have this idea was originated. It's the passive idea. This is going to be the idea that there is an external agent who is performing this particular action, who is causing the origination, but also more than that, who is doing the giving here. And we understand that this would be God giving the originated one, and more than that, this Son. And this Son that we're talking about, he is the one who is going to rule. And then we have further detail here as well. Then he called, the name of him. Now, very clearly, the name of him, that's going to be referring to the son. But here, Vayikra, then he called, the one who is doing the calling here is also the one who did the origination and who did the giving. So God called the name of him all of these things. But that makes perfect sense because he would be the only one who would have the authority to give those names, especially to one who is God in the flesh. And so thus you have then Pele, Yoetz, El Gibor, Aviad, Sar, Shalom. And so those are his names. And so thus we get some idea of who this individual is that is going to be originated, who is going to be given, and who in fact will rule there. But you can see from this how it is that we do have these pronominal suffixes on these nouns and on these prepositions as well. Now, another thing as well here, we also have pronominal suffixes that will occur on verbs as well. They are exactly the same form that you will see on prepositions and on nouns, but they'll occur on verbs and they will be the objects of the verbs. So let me just go ahead and show you what it is that I mean here as we take a look at Numbers 6:24 through 26. The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. And so here you can see the Hebrew text here. And as well, let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger. So we have then Yevaraka Yihya V'yishmaraka. Ya'er Yihya Panal Eleka, Yehuneka. Yisa Yihya Panal Eleka, V'yasem Leka Shalom. So here we have this particular, and you're familiar with Shalom already from what we just saw there in Isaiah 9:6. But Yevaraka. So this here, you can tell by the presence of that imperfect performative that this is going to be a verb. But notice as well what we have here at the end. We have ika. And that you know from those pronominal suffixes that we looked over, that this is in fact a second masculine singular pronominal suffix. And then you also have the verb barak, which has the idea of to bless. So we have then is blessing. It's incomplete action as indicated by that imperfect. And who is doing the blessing? Well, we have Yihya. So he is the subject here. So he is blessing you. So thus you can see Yihya is blessing you. And then we also have V'yishmareka. Notice that we do have the wow conjunctive here on an imperfect verb with the second masculine singular pronominal suffix on the verb shamer, which is the idea of to keep. So thus we have then and he, meaning Yihya, is keeping you. Then we come on down here to Ya'er. Now, this particular verb here, you can again see that same third masculine singular pronominal suffix on the front, but this is a hifil, meaning causative action. So thus, and it comes from the verb or ur, which is basically the idea of to be light. And so thus this is to cause lighting, if you will. So he is causing lighting, or you could also say he is enlightening, he is lightening in some way. Those would all be correct. So Ya'ir, and then who is doing this? Yihya. And then you have Panal Eleka. So notice here, you again have this "ow" pronominal suffix. It's the third masculine singular, but that yod tells me that it's on a plural noun. And that noun is pane, which is the idea of face. So we would say the face. So the faces of him. Now, in Hebrew, the word face is usually in the plural. The reason being we have more than one face. You can see I have this face here, the profile, both profiles, and then also as I'm talking to you, my face is all the time changing. And so as a result, we have many faces. And so that's why you're going to see the Hebrew noun face in the plural. So the faces of him, eleka, this is going to be the preposition el, to, with the second masculine singular pronominal suffix again. So this would be to you. So notice this. So far we have then Yihya is blessing you and he is keeping you. Yihya is causing lighting the faces of him to you. And then as well, here we have Wihuneka. And so this here, you can see, again, we've got the wow conjunction. There's my third masculine singular pronominal suffix. There's the eka, I'm sorry, the yod would be the third masculine singular imperfect performative. And then here, the eka is the second masculine singular pronominal suffix on the verb chanan, which is basically grace. So, and he is gracing you. And then we also have here with yisa. You can see again, we have the third masculine singular pronominal suffix. The dagesh forte there tells me that a noon has assimilated. This is on the verb nasa, which is the idea of to lift. So thus is lifting up. There's the subject again. Yihya panal. Oh, look, we just saw that up above. So the faces of him. There's that third masculine singular pronominal suffix on a plural noun again. And then eleka.
Sorry, just coughing.
Oh,
My usual.
sure. All right. So then we also have eleka, to you. So he is lifting up the faces of him to you. And then here we also have wiyasem. Notice that we have the wow conjunction there. The third masculine singular imperfect performative, same, which is the idea of to set. So thus, and he is setting. Leka, there's the lamed preposition with the second masculine singular pronominal suffix. To you, shalom, that idea of completeness that we just saw. Now, one of the interesting things here as well that I do want to point out before I hand it over to the dean, notice that all of these here, Yihya is blessing you and he is keeping you. Yihya is causing lighting the faces of him to you, and he is gracing you. Yihya is lifting up the faces of him to you, and he is setting to you completeness. All of those used there are second masculine singular. In other words, remember in the context here, Aaron is talking to all of the elders of Israel, especially. But he's not addressing them here as a group. He's saying to you, to you, to you individually. So in other words, this is a blessing that is being pronounced upon each of the individuals that is present instead of upon just the collective, which is just kind of an interesting thing to think about as well. All right, anything that we should add there, sir?
Only about an hour.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
but that's okay. No, that's good.
All right.
So
So,
I guess the one thing that I would say in particular, yeah, and you may have said it, and I was just doing something else, trying to pull up some documents, but you know, that because that isn't, the verbs are incomplete, they're imperfects.
mm,
It also signifies that this is something that would be future as well. So when he says, Yihya will bless you, and Yihya will keep you, and Yihya will cause his the lightning of his face upon you, and so forth. Those things, that's not it. We say, may the Lord bless you and keep you, but he's not saying that as though we would say it like I hope or I wish for the Lord to do this. That's not what he was saying. He was saying this is what the Lord will do. And the only way that they could keep that from happening is if they, from that time, those who would receive this blessing upon them, if they would, after that time, choose to violate the blessing of God, just like Adam had done. But when they choose to violate, the blessing does not come in the same way. The blessing comes in the criteria that are imposed that seek to turn man back to the way of blessing. But the Lord will bless, the Lord will keep, the Lord will lighten. And then, wow, we could, good one there. But all kinds of interesting little words there. So, I think so many times we have translated something into English, and when we translated it into English, we stopped looking back to see how God had actually said it, how he had actually given it. And in so doing, we have lost some of the significance that, just like, as we've said so many times, the idea that Noah pronounced a curse upon Canaan and so forth. Noah did not pronounce a curse. Noah simply recognized what was going to happen in Cain's in the children of Ham, I should say. So he saw what Ham had done and realized the lack of respect that Ham had exhibited for his father, for him, Noah, his father, and he knew that Ham's sons would be affected by the violation of their father, shall we say, even to the third and the fourth generation, and thus that the violation of the father would affect the children. And so he's saying this is what will happen to Canaan, but he's not saying this is what must happen to Canaan. This is what will happen. And the only way out of that situation would be if Canaan says, oh God, I have been wrong. Thinking about it, we were talking about it a little yesterday, that we had this situation where and people wonder, why did God make a situation where we have to consciously accept his remedy, his means of reconciliation? Why do we have to believe that is cause firmness to what is revealed about Christ? Well, it's because we consciously in Adam chose to reject his design. That was our choice. And now we have to make a choice to go back the other way. That's the system he built. You choose to accept Christ as the payment for the violation. You choose to, as the Old Testament saint would have said, we choose to believe God, and just like Abraham did. And but it's a matter where the individual must make a choice. It is not something that is pre-established in any way, except that this is the design and humans are accountable to that design. And it is inescapable, inexorable, irrefragable, etceterable. I don't know what that fourth one is. I don't know what etceterable is. But that's the idea. We took our authority and we chose to violate. And now we take the same authority that he has allowed us during the time of physical life. And in that authority, we choose to accept. Instead of reject, we choose to accept his way, what he has revealed about how to be reconciled to him. And it's, it's not that, I don't know, boy, there's so much more to that. I'm not going to go there anymore. I quit for the moment.
All right. So I see we had a message that came
Yeah.
in. Yes.
Yeah. For those of you that didn't see, Pete said, amazing thought that the God would turn his face to me personally and provide such graces to me individually and to you and to anyone and everyone else who would walk with him. Yeah, Peter, I think that is the issue. And see, to me, what we're talking about and what you've described here is when we see him as he has revealed himself, and then we realize, wow, because people want to blame God for everything. No, maybe we better step up to the plate and take the blame that is our own. And then when we take that blame, we go back to him and say, oh God, thank you. Thank you for all that you have bestowed so freely upon my existence. And we don't think we deserve it. But keep in mind, I've known individuals, more than one, who came out of Ambassador Baptist College, and it was not the college's fault that they did this, but they came out with the idea that if they did everything they were supposed to do, so they were doing, I did this, I do that, I tithe, I give to missions, I do this and I do that, and I'm in services just like I'm supposed to be, and I'm doing all of these things that I'm told I'm supposed to do. That's called Phariseeism to start with. But these people thought then when something happened to them, especially something that caused a loss of health or an accident or something like that, and then they ask the question, God, why did you let this happen to me? I did everything I was supposed to do. Why did you bring this into my life? What have I done wrong that caused you to do it? That's the same question Job asked. It's the same question Job's friends asked. That's the same question they all thought at that era. And that's not what God was doing with Job or with any individual in this day either. So anyway, okay. That would be an extra piece of the Bible study, I guess. So
I'll go ahead and I'll stop the recording.
all right.